All right. Happy Friday. Is it Friday? I guess it's Friday. It appears to be Friday. Oh, let's see. Just do some little maintenance here. I'm looking. That's interesting. Um, huh. Okay. Well, we'll just leave that alone then. Oh, yeah. So I got the OSR subreddit up and let's see what we got. I'm gonna just take I made some fresh Jamaica drink, agua de Jamaica. So for the working man, cheers. Okay, we're looking at new. We're on the OSR tab. Okay. Let's see. Mother Dearest Dollhouse, the Gothic horror module for Pit Crawler. I don't know what any of those things are, but kudos to them. They made a town that sits precariously atop their Dungeon 23 Mega Dungeon. All right, that's great. Hey, Ian. Howdy. Okay, the Hopeless and All Rain Adventuring Company. All right, did anyone try Torque Borg? Nope. OSR blog roll. Looks like it's only got one thing in it, so I'll hold off on that. Making some Retainers Hirelings their campaign. Hey, I just did a video of Retainers Hirelings. These are cool. Little cards. Oh no, nice. That's cool. They have the picture and then the mini. Oh, wow, that's still going above me on. Those cards are really, really nice. Be cool to have some of those that you could fill in. I think kind of like those. I've seen some different. In fact, I have some. I bought some. I haven't done anything with. You can get playing card. Okay, so you know the little whiteboards, and I have one. One I need to do something with because I think I let it. It's kind of. It was really cheap, and it's sort of coming apart. Is this? But it's made out of whiteboard material. And I got another one, some smaller ones that are also that kind of whiteboard, or maybe I should say erasable marker material. I don't know, dry erase, I guess. Hey, my ear trumpet, thanks so much. And they have some that are playing card sized so that you can write some stuff. And it'll be maybe I'll have to do it myself. It'll be cool to have some. Unfortunately, I think the problem with not a problem, but with these little whiteboard things is that I feel like the whiteboard markers that I see out there, they're not very fine. They don't have a fine tip. So on a playing card, I haven't really messed around with too much, but it seems like I know on the larger ones, I feel like I'm always writing large. Everything's kind of written larger. But having something that was of that kind of erasable or dry erase quality to it, but it was kind of a playing card where you could write. Maybe it had some things like the grid lines or something where you could, or a dot grid or something you could write some stuff in about the hireling would be cool. Oh, Ian says they've got dry erase index cards somewhere. Yeah. Hey, gamers on games. Yeah, where are my dry erase cards? Did I bring them? Did I leave them? Hold on a second. Haha. There we go. They're right here. I haven't even had a chance to take them out of the plastic yet. But I think these could be really handy, and I got them because I meant to do stuff with them, which I haven't gotten around to doing yet. But I also wonder, at least with the kind of dry erase cards I've seen, if they're too small. Hey, yeah, gamers and games. We'll see you at PAX. Absolutely. Anybody, if you're going to be at PAX, then Mr. Rourke says just right on a player's arm. Yeah, I suppose you could you could do that. You could do that too. You absolutely could right on somebody's arm. But be, beyond that, other than that, then yeah, I think this is a cool idea. I mean, look, this is really nice. I feel like it's a little bit above and beyond the Call of Duty, but I guess they're playing in a kind of game where they're using minis because, or they're just gonna. I wonder if these. I guess they all have names. So these are all like literally really personal hirelings. I just hope they don't die. Or because these are. I guess you could print out another card with the same art and then someone else's name. I suppose. That is an option, but it's a really cool idea. I appreciate that, Gamers on Games. Yeah, I'd love to be famous someday, far from today. My daughter's letting the cat in. Cat wants to come in the room, but I guarantee as soon as that door shuts, she's going to turn around and want to leave again. That's just how it works. Gamers and Games says they like getting attached to their hirelings. I mean, I think they're great to get attached to, but I think they often have an expiration. And that expiration comes fast. And when you've invested, this is kind of I think this is something that, something I believe, and I think there's different ways you see permutations on this. What is often said about, say, 5th edition, right, is that if you're spending an hour creating your character, then the idea that character dies in 5 minutes becomes not even. I can see why people will be like, "Hey, look, why am I investing all this time and somebody's going to die in 5 minutes?" You want to get. I would say you probably want to get at least the time you put into creating the character out of play before you die. So maybe you say for a game like 5e, and I don't know that it takes an hour. Okay, whatever. Maybe whatever time. I would imagine that, hey, maybe you want to say that, look, your character will at least survive twice as long as your initial investment. So if you spend an hour on that character, we won't kill him until at least 2 hours in, or something like that, right? Something like that. But I think that also works for GMs. And I think what I've been thinking lately is, you have a GM who spent hours working on a set piece encounter, they're unlikely to want that set piece encounter thrown in the trash. Or, when you see DMs get frustrated, oh, why this player did this one ability and it ruined my thing, or they didn't let it ruin it, and then the player's complaining, oh, my GM, I have this ability, it didn't let me use it. I think it's because, well, the GM's thinking, listen, I spent hours plotting out this encounter, I'm not going to let you kill it in 30 seconds. That investment of time, I think, it's similar, right? Okay, well, I put all this time in, and I want to at least have some of that time back. Maybe I don't think it's going to take hours if you defeat it, but 30 seconds feels like I'm wasting my time. And so the same thing with hirelings. And I wonder, like, yeah, that's beautiful. You put all this time into this work in the hirelings, but then do you play them the same way, or, that you would if you didn't have all that stuff? Because now you've created you've created backstories, now giving them cards, and they have their own painted minis. Well, are you suddenly gonna pull your punches on your hirelings because you invest that time, which is very understandable, but maybe goes a little bit counter to, I feel like, the kind of thing with hirelings, that not that you should be just killing them willy-nilly, but they should be, I don't know, I think there should be, they shouldn't get artificially saved because it has a card, or because now it has a mini, kind of thing. And I think the same thing, like with VTTs and things, like you put all this work and effort into getting the game up for a VTT, or to get an encounter sub in a VTT, or a battle map, and the lighting and all the shadows and all that stuff, and then you're unlikely, I think, I would imagine, having not done this myself, but I imagine, and hey, Wiki Snapper, I imagine that you are probably maybe going to be a little bit hesitant on some level if the party decides to end around that thing. That's where I think, like, that quantum part comes in. Well, I'm going to quantum this thing because then I can put it in wherever they go, so I don't waste it. But me, since I don't plan out individual encounters, I could care less. Oh, there are 2 goblins in a room, and you run around and you decide not to go in that room. Okay, great. Oh, there's some kind of horrible ooze in that room. You didn't go in. Okay, I don't care. Like, it doesn't. These things don't. I don't take a bunch of time to set it up, so they're not precious to me. And I think that's kind of like, maybe that would be one of my big things, would be, don't let any part of the game as a player or GM become precious. Nothing should be precious. All right, I'm not really seeing anything. Let's keep scrolling down. Oh, look at this one. This is right up my alley. Need some hex crawl advice? Yes, please. This is posted by little_knowledge_856. I'll zoom in here. A mere 5 hours ago. I'm running the Isle of Dread using the Goodman Games OAR. I don't know what the Goodman Games OAR is. I'm guessing it's some kind of old school system, but I'm not familiar with OAR. My players finished a little zombie master dungeon I made in the village of Tanaroa. Last session, they left the village and explored the isle north of the wall. They explored the southern half and got to the central plateau, missing 9 set locations or layers. It was 15 days of travel, and there were a few random encounters, but like I said, they didn't enter hexes with any layers. Question: do you guys move set encounters on the map so the players run into them, or do you stick with what your map says? Generally, I stick to the layout of things because I want to be surprised by what happens, but they missed all of them. I felt like it was a dull session of just moving around the map, rolling for encounters, and getting lost. Central Plateau has some interesting sites. I added another dungeon under Taboo Island, and the OAR adds to the first 2 levels, so there's plenty left to do. What is OAR? Is that their redo? Like they have those? Is that the big books? Original Adventures Redux, or not Redux? I don't know. Mr. Rourke says I should do a video on smarter random encounter tables. I probably got. I mean, I've done a couple. I mean, I guess smarter, smarter according to whom. Everyone's got their ideas of what they want, right? So I feel like what a smarter encounter table is going to look like is going to be very different from one person to the next. If someone want kind of a shadow dark, they're kind of, when you look at their charts, or I guess they don't have to do it that way, but they have those ones for different regions, and it's basically like almost like a set piece. Do you want? I thought the one that Baron DeRop, is that his name? He did that one where you make kind of a list. That's the one I did a video on. I thought, like, I think this is a good system kind of thing. I think the thing is you should be adding to your encounters and recycling stuff. I also think I would not move the stuff because you never know when the party's going to come back, and I don't think you need. And plus, and I pretty much made this mistake. I ran the Isle of Dread as a one shot, and I shrunk everything down, and I started putting things in front of the players because I wanted to make sure they could kind of get some sort of fun Isle of Dread stuff. There was no way in a one shot that they were going to do it. And what they ended up feeling, and I think I told the story a long time ago, because one of the comments I got back was they felt like it was a monster corridor, because they just felt like it felt like they didn't really have any free will. There was something wherever they went. Okay, which is kind of interesting because a lot of times with hex crawls, one of the things people do is to try to improve them is to put something wherever you go. But their thing was like, I think they probably felt like, hey, if we're making natural choices and you're honoring our choices, we should hit some spots that don't have obstacles and things in them. We should be able to get into space like, oh, it's empty. And and in my point of view, I was like, well, I wanted to give you kind of an exciting one shot. So I wanted to make everything kind of super exciting. And I remember I ended up showing them the map, and I had moved some things around, but basically everything that they ran into was basically stuff that was in the area of where they went. It's just that because I knew we weren't going to have a lot of time on the island, if they were one hex off from running into the psionic spiders or anything, I was like, I'll just move the psionic spiders over here so you get to experience it. And I thought, like, oh, you get to experience all the stuff. But they felt like like they felt like their choices were being that they were being railroaded, essentially. And I had to go back and say, like, here are the things you saw, here are the areas you went into, and I was following your directions, all the different terrain, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I just kind of wanted to give you the highlights, kind of thing, right? But it didn't. They didn't see it that way. Not that necessarily it was a horrible thing. They weren't, damning the adventure, but it was one of those things of like, okay. And it was also that part where I remember thinking like, okay, these guys have been playing, and it's funny too because they're the normal game, because I was in their group. In their regular group game with those guys for a long time. I don't know a long time, but for good stretch. Anyway, their games, the normal games where I was a player, were extremely linear. So it was both kind of, I found that kind of ironic and stuff that I was trying to open it up and give them more choices, and they weren't seeing the choices as much as I'm trying to present it, even though I was trying to present them this kind of open world. It was really kind of a fascinating, interesting sort of experiment that kind of went bad. But I wouldn't move the layers around. I think, like, part of me trying to read between the lines says it was a dull session of just moving around the map. But if nothing's happening on the map, you don't need to spend any time on it. Like, you can, okay, you guys spend 3 days traveling, and you're traveling west and whatever. Like, if nothing's happening, then just move the time. It doesn't have to take much more time. I understand where you might get into, okay, camping. Like, you can also set up those standard operating procedures, right? And if you're doing if you're running by the book, say BX, you're only rolling one encounter check per day. So you can ask them what their watches are and things like that. Or you can really even just kind of abstract it and be like, okay, you're moving 3 days and things are changing or whatever's changing. Alternatively, yeah, just talk about things there. And this would probably go hand in hand with it, is imagine, get your mood board of what the jungle like. What look at I don't know, pictures of Hawaii and things like that, and get some different so that they're coming into different things. And you can have different elements out there. And there's a waterfall over here with some cliffs, and here's a copse of trees. Here's a volcanic. I don't know. It's like I don't know the term where a volcanic ground. That where it's got the black. Is it pumice? No, or maybe it's not pumice yet. I don't remember. Okay. All right. I just inspired gamers on games. You could do a lot of stuff with what is in the hexes, and I think that's where you should probably put your time into. And then look, if something is in the hex next door, and it makes sense, they can spot it. If there's a camp of cavemen that are over there, have them see a fire, smoke from a campfire in the distance. If they're pterodactyls that have a nest on a cliff on the other side, have them see pterodactyls circling above and going. All right, you can hint and show that things are out there without that. So that's how you can kind of try to tempt them with. The other thing is those tracks and traces. Okay, so you're in the hex and there's a layer right next to you. What's in that layer? I don't know. Let's say it's some kind of dinosaur. Okay, well then you should be seeing dinosaur tracks. So whatever they're following, you can say, oh yeah, you can see dinosaur tracks. A multitude of dinosaur tracks seem to be passing, or maybe it's a some kind of game trail, and it's going in the direction that would lead towards where that layer is. And maybe the players bite and they follow the trail and then they get to the layer, or they don't, they keep going. Because that's the other thing. The players, even if you throw it right in front of them, they may decide, no, we're good. We want to get to that plateau. So we're not going to do that thing, which is fine. So, don't spend undue time on empty hexes. Make sure when they're passing near to stuff, it's fine to reference those things and give them traces and tracks and trails and clues and all those things to sort of tempt them, or at least give them information, even if they don't end up going to the, I don't know, giant crocodile lair. Well, if they see the tracks, they'll at least be aware that giant crocodiles are about, or they might see droppings, or they might see a kill site, or they might see any number of things that could indicate that, oh, there's something over there. Maybe we don't know it's a giant crocodile, but it's large and it's reptilian and, whatever. That is my take. All right. Thanks, Little Knowledge 856 for that. Let's see if we can find something else. Where did I go? Okay. It went and it pushed me back. Okay. So let's see. Some Mouse Ritter. I need to read Mouse Ritter before I start reading Mouse Ritter Adventures. One-page dungeons, Summer Apocalypse. Well, that's nice. Check it out, I guess. Module recommendations for someone that just read and loved Dream Shrine. Yeah, I don't know anything about Dream Shrine, so that doesn't help. Chief Gomlington crossing an icy pond. I like that. Tower of the Precipice for old school essentials. Looks nice. Whoops. Cool. Congrats to them. Miro for mapping. Yeah, sure. Some artwork looks nice. First dungeon map they've done in 30 years. Looks cool. Best Fantasy Adventures detailing a small to medium ancient alien craft. I mean, someone mentioned Barrier Peaks. Oh, Gamers on Games mentioned Barrier Peaks. Yeah, Barrier Peaks would be the one. I'm sure there's other ones, but that one comes to mind. What OSR system would work for a Berserk game, specifically one focused on the Golden Age arc? I mean, Berserk, it's really... I don't even know if you need a specific system. I mean, I think my system actually, I think would work pretty well. You just beef up. Guts would be someone with because if you're playing something like my game and games that use kind of a chainmail kind of vibe to it, in terms of if you're starting off someone off as a hero, 4th level, when they're in kind of mass combat, which a lot of Golden Age Berserk. So Berserk's an anime. It spans, I don't even know how many or the manga. I don't know the manga. I don't know what the manga is. How many episodes the manga has, or issues, I should say. But Guts or Berserk is the Guts and his trials and tribulations, and there's some really awful stuff that happens to poor Guts and some of his crew. They did one of the best jobs, I think, with the guy who wields a sword that's as large as they are, kind of things. Like if you ever played Final Fantasy VII, which is really the only Final Fantasy game I ever played. What was his name? Cloud Strife, or he has that massive sword. Well, Guts, at least they kind of explain it in a way that makes slightly more sense a little bit because he was as a kid he was given an adult sword and he had to learn how to wield it. And he's a big brawny guy as opposed to Cloud that looks like a skinny kind of goth kid. And so as he grew up, he just kept making his sword bigger and bigger, kind of relative to his right. So if you take adult sword to a kid and you just keep expanding that and he becomes a really big beefy guy, then his sword just kind of gets relatively bigger, and that's kind of how he learned his style. Anyway, the golden age is kind of the before the stuff really hits the fan for Guts and the world in general. He becomes a member of a mercenary company and they're basically mercs for hire, and they get embroiled in politics, and it's kind of their rise in fame and fortune again before the floor falls out. And they're mercenaries and they fight. They got some really kind of funny sort of pseudo cheesy European medieval kind of names for like there's like the Golden Whale Knights, and there's all these different knight orders that they fight against, and there's a lot of kind of their class struggle because there's mercenaries and there's all kinds of politics and shenanigans. But in any case, it takes, and the other thing too is it doesn't really have very many fantastical elements. There's kind of this interesting idea of the world, and it's not a realistic world, but it's a very grounded world. There are definitely some supernatural, some fantastic elements, but after the big events at the end of the Golden Age is when it becomes more of a fantasy world generally, right? So a game that was trying to do something like Berserk, at least the way I'm thinking about it, would be lots of mass combat heroes in a mass combat sense. At least kind of squadron. I mean, they're taking part in sieges and big battles, and you don't necessarily have to have the huge battle, have a huge full chainmail battle, but that's kind of at least the backdrop is there's always things happening, and then they're going up against generally folks who are not as strong as them. I mean, at least Guts and a couple of the other main characters are clearly steps above the others, but there's also this concept of just getting piled on. So one of Guts in the story, one of a big moment is he almost dies, but he defeats 100 men. Like basically this whole company comes after him, 100 strong, and he kills them all. And of course he's near death, exhausted, whatever. But I think a game that that uses the sort of troop combat and chainmail or something like that, where you can really deal death at a high scale. Really, like that's one of the things with I think that people, I don't want to say misunderstand, but so last night I played in Daniel, aka Bandit Keep's OD&D game, and we didn't have any combat. We were doing social stuff, but my character now is a superhero. I have a paladin, a fighter main class, subclass paladin. Okay, 8th level now. So in combat, troops, like normal troops and kind of troop combat, they have to check morale just as I get into the thing, right? Which is just like I just my character enters the fray, and it's all right. We got to check morale. Hey, Gamers on Games, thanks so much. I will check out your short, and I'll see you at PAX if nothing else. So my character just gets into the kind of the combat, and all these normal types have to just check morale, and then the damage I can do on top of, I think I'm rolling eight dice. All right, 6s. I don't even know. I guess it depends on what number, whether it's 4, 5, 6s, 5, 6s, or 6s. It really depends on the troops that I'm facing. And I think Daniel even amped it even more, where I think I take out like 8 guys. I think I take out 8 guys just in combat, and then on top of that, some other thing. And some of that's his own system. But in general, you get those units in chainmail, these heroic, fantastic units in chainmail, and they just start to dominate. It even gets to the point where something like a dragon can only be killed by other fantastic creatures, and heroes and above count for that. And you can't even, other than that, it just wipes out anything else. So a system like that can do that kind of thing, because that I think is where you're getting into kind of that Berserk territory. So maybe in the Golden Age, Guts is not a superhero, but maybe he's a hero. So we can get on the fantastic table, which would be where some of the creatures you do meet, though I forget what they call them, the ones that are sort of, I don't know, it's like mutated by evil. I don't know what I think they're not called acolytes. There's a name for them, and they're just kind of crazy. And there's a couple of them that show up in that Golden Age area section, but some of those creatures, whatever. And then you can still get taken down by normal types. But for example, if you're a hero and you're going against normal types, a hero has around, it's like a hero, at least for a fighter, is 4 hit dice. That means they have to hit you they need 4 hits on you in a single turn to kill you. So every round, that resets back to 0. So you're a fighter and you're encountering, say, 10 men. Well, maybe they'll, and I think in chainmail, I don't even know if it would be like, because basically I think the hero just basically counts as pretty much like 10 men anyway. But even if you were doing it like each guy, instead of using a figure, let's say each of those 10 guys was rolling their own dice, they'd still need to roll a bunch of 6s to hit you. So unlikely they're going to do that. But it's also probably more likely that you're going to start cutting into them, right? So you get that fantastic feel. So I think you'd want a system that can really show that, and something that kind of utilizes that chainmail. My system has kind of a similar thing where if you got 4 hit dice, you're rolling a bunch of dice, and against kind of normal types who are rolling single dice each, sure, they're rolling 10 dice. Yeah, there's a chance you could roll. Well, let me just see. If they're rolling, let's go to any dice. Let's check it out. So assuming that everyone needs 6s. All right, so output, let me see, 10. Hold on a minute. I gotta shoot. This is gonna be, because I don't I don't think I remember how to do things. It's been a while. Count values in sequence. No, highest. Okay, maybe this. Yeah, maybe I need something like this. So let's just see this. I think this might work. Output. Oh, I don't need it twice. Okay, output. Highest. 4 of 10d6. Okay, here's where I'm gonna equals 6. Is that right? Oops, 6. Is that gonna work? No. Oops. What does this do? Hold on. Let's try this. What is this? Highest. Oh, it's adding them up. Shoot. Nope, that's not what I want. Okay. No, I don't want. Well, let's just see. Highest 4. So we want 24, right? 4 times 6. So you only have a 6. There's a 7% chance. Is that right? No, that can't be right. Yeah, it's got to be right. Correct. Because the lowest they can get is 10. So yeah, so so this kind of works. I'm assuming this actually does work, I think. Because you need 4 6s. So the highest to get the highest 4 to 6 is basically, there's a 7% chance. Right. So remember, keep in mind, a 1 in 6 chance is about 16%. So almost a little bit more than double that. So the chances of them taking you out in a given round is under 10%. You have a 95+% chance of survival. And by the same token, you're probably hitting them on like a 5 and 6 or 4, so again, depending on the troops. And if you're just fighting kind of villager types, it might be a 4, 5, and 6. Like you're cutting through them like the wheat and the chaff. And of course, every time you're cutting through them, you're reducing their number of dice to roll the next turn. So eventually they just get to a point where they just can't hurt you. You get under, and once there's less than 4, and that's if you're 4th level, you can't hurt you. So that's the kind of system I would pick, someone that can do that, because most of Berserk, there are a couple of times where they go into kind of dungeon-like places, but really most of it is that. And the dungeons you can just run with anything. But that's what I would pick. Something that is really good at making the heroic types feel really heroic and powerful. But the normal types are still feeling kind of normal. So not everybody's amped up. And that's kind of, I think, a cool thing with the kind of OD&D sort of chainmail kind of thing, is the normal types just feel like normal types. And when you're also basically a normal type, they feel plenty dangerous. And they can still be dangerous in numbers. If you have a whole bunch of archers firing, I got 50 archers lined up and they're firing at me. Well, that's going to be rough. You still don't really want to be in that, but you also feel super strong. If that makes sense. Okay. Moving on. And of course, if you guys have anything, comments, questions, feel free to throw them in there. But I'll just keep looking along. looking around. Do y'all prefer playing? This is an interesting one. Do you prefer playing with or running games? I guess we'll read the whole thing here instead of just the question. Okay, this is posted by Vagrant for Hire 33.3. Do y'all prefer playing with or running games for beginners or experts? I know there are different styles of playing D&D, but I was wondering how players with different experience levels approach playing in an OSR game. Do y'all prefer playing with or running games for beginners or experts? How does a game group with mixed experience levels usually go for you? I've been running a Dolmenwood home game, starting with the Black Worm Brandonsford module, for the past 9 months with a party of 6 players, and there are clearly defined groups based on experience level. First are the rookies, who are completely new to D&D. Next, I have veteran D&D 5e players who haven't really been introduced to OSR play, and strangely enough, I have one old-timer in the group, me, the old-timer, who played first edition D&D back in the 70s and 80s. He even went to the early D&D cons back in the day. And it's been really interesting to see how my players react to the game world, specifically with the OSR game style. My home game includes OSR elements such as Gold for XP, Tactical Infinity, Emergent Storytelling, OSR adventure modules, and combat as war rather than sport, etc. The rookies, this is long. We have 3 rookies with no prior experience, but plenty of board game and video game experience. They have played complicated games like Spirit Island, Scythe, and Ark Nova. All 3 rookies also love video games that focus on exploration, story, and combat like the Legend of Zelda series, Alan Wake, and the Final Fantasy series. It was so awesome to see how the rookies embraced the exploration and problem-solving aspect of the OSR. This manifested into an almost completionist mindset where every NPC and location had to be examined and explored. Items, merchants, and clues were seen as tools to be used for problem-solving and served to help complete the main quest. I love veterans. Next, we have 2 veteran players with backgrounds in playing and running 5th edition, story-centric, tactical gameplay style games. These 2 love to collaborate on and problem solve while incorporating their backstory in order to make story moments. This helped fuel the emergent storytelling side of the OSR mindset at the table. The veterans were quick to think of out-of-the-box solutions for adventuring problems and leaned into the procedural exploration and travel, making sure the party had enough overland movement to accomplish their goals before nightfall. Finally, the old-timer. Now, the old-timer hasn't played D&D since the 70s, but he remembered a whole lot of core mechanics and sensibilities from first edition, e.g. tactical thinking, marching order, racist class, dungeon delving, gold for XP. The old-timer really enjoys finding ways to turn an expedition into a business opportunity, finding a bunch of old perfuming oils in a crypt and selling it for a profit. This kind of creativity blends into how he approaches combat, analyzing every corner and angle of a dungeon and making sure the party has sufficient light, that sort of thing. Overall, I couldn't have asked for a better game group. After running 5th edition with a very modern, story-centric style for years, the OSR is a welcome breath of fresh air for both me and my players. Okay, a couple of comments here. Wiki Snapper says, beginners usually, there is a spark. Hold on a second, let me see it. Whoops, that's not what I wanted to do. Oh, that was your website. That's cool. I didn't actually mean to do that, but that was neat. Go visit the Wiki Snapper's website. Is that the website or is that? Oh, yeah, that is. Cool. The Dave, aka Wiki Snapper. Nice. I didn't know it could do that. I clicked on that and it just opened it up. Okay, so Wiki Snapper says, beginners usually, there's a spark in new players where you can see their minds open up to the idea that they could treat the world like the real world. They love that. Yeah, I think it's a good point. ESSF1TZ says, a mix. There's something awesome about seeing them, quote unquote, get it, even though it can be really frustrating sometimes when you simply want things to move and you're educating, not playing. Yeah, I mean, I think all I really want is I really just want enthusiasm, and I want and just don't bring expectations. Sort of expectations divorced from everything else, right? I think one of the things I think that happens. I was going to do a video about this. I probably still will. I find in the 5e circles, it's kind of this game system expectations kind of thing, where you're coming in, you'll see this, it shows up in many different ways, from people saying, well, if you don't have all the, you're not using all the tools in, or, you're not using all the classes, or you're not using all the species, I can't be an Aarakocra, or I can't be whatever, then like something's wrong with your game. You're an awful GM and you should be shot or something, or these other things. And it has nothing to do with the quality of the game. It just has to do with, with this, that they're bringing to it, that, it can only kind of be this thing. And I think the great thing about new players is they don't have those expectations. I mean, they might, okay? There's some edge cases where someone's new, but they've been watching Critical Role or something, or some other thing, or maybe they were watching the old D&D cartoon, and that's what they thought the game was like, but I think for the most part, they really are kind of expectation free, at least in the system sense, whatever. They don't have you get to kind of show them how the world, you get to show them how playing is, and they'll sort of eat it up as a sponge. Sometimes the players with experience, they want to do things the way they've done them. They want to treat it the way some other game was, which is not your game. Or they want to compare it to something else. Oh, you're doing it this way. I don't know. It's like, wait, well, this is my game. You can run your game the way you want. This is the way I'm running my game. And they should both be, there's room enough for all of these things. And then, but for me, I like the enthusiasm and stuff that new players bring. I think it is nice sometimes when you have people who kind of do understand really what you're doing, so that if you have changes, if you are doing something kind of homebrewy or different, they can kind of grok it a little bit better, because they're, if you're like, say you give somebody the core book, but you're telling them, okay, ignore this part, ignore that part, and then this other part, like a new player is more apt to get very confused by that, because they're reading something in the book and they're not knowing. Whereas a veteran's probably like, oh yeah, we've done this before. I got you. Like, I can feel, I get what you're putting out with kind of minimal hand holding. Whereas a newbie player, might need hand holding more. So, but it's really like, what are they bringing to it? Like, I just want you to bring a pot. Like, you're here to have fun. You're here to game. So let's game, and just bring that enthusiasm, bring that openness to new things. Don't come and say, well, if I can't be an elf or a dwarf or a human, then this game stinks and I'm automatically against it. Or, oh, you did this to magic. Like, oh, I can't believe you're doing magic like this. Like, well, just try it. This is the game. So don't play magic. If you don't like the way magic is, don't play magic. You just play something else. I always came from it. And I didn't think, and I still don't think, at least of gamers of a certain age. I think some folks will find this very, like, yeah, this is kind of how we did it. And maybe newer folks, not so much. But like, my first question, if someone would say to me, or I got invited to a group or something, like, okay, like my first question was always, all right, so what are the, like, oh, we're playing D&D. Like, you invite me to your games. Hey, Todd, we're playing D&D tomorrow. Okay, great. I might ask you, is there anything I need to know? Like, and you, let's say you say, oh no, we're going to do everything on the spot. Okay, great. Before I get to thinking, I'm not, and I'm not going to be thinking about characters. I'm not thinking about what class I'm going to play. I'm not thinking about anything. Okay. And when we get to the point where we're doing that, my first question is going to be like, okay, so what's allowed? Like, what are we doing? Like, what are the books? What's in, what's out? Give me the setup. Because that's just how I came up. That's what I always do. Because everyone was constantly, oh yeah, I'm playing this, but I'm not playing. We're playing an all dwarf campaign. Okay, great. Oh yeah, we're playing no elves. Okay, great. We're playing human only. Okay, we're only playing elves. All right, we're only playing non-humans. Okay, great. We're playing with these 4 classes. Okay, great. We're playing with these 16 classes. Okay, great. We're playing with these 10 custom classes. Okay, great. Like, that would always be my thing, is let me find out what the parameters of the world and this game is, and then I'll figure out what I want to do. And how are we, okay, so what classes and species are available? Okay, how are we doing that? The next one, are we rolling stats? Are we doing array, point by? Like, what's the deal? Right now, you just get all these details. Okay, great. We'll sit down and run the game. It was never like, at least what I read sometimes, like, oh, I've got like my next 10 characters already written up and stuff. It's like, well, how can you have them written up when you don't even know what the next game is? Like, that it doesn't make any sense. I mean, it does not make sense. You don't know what that world is, but you have your mind already set, like, no, I'm playing an elf ranger. Well, yeah, then of course, if you have your heart set on playing an elf ranger and you get to the game and they're like, oh yeah, by the way, there are no rangers in this game and there's also no elves in this game, then you're of course you're going to be annoyed and upset because you've got your heart set on playing this elf ranger. So you're already starting off just in a bad spot. Whereas me, I'll just come in and say, well, what are we playing? And I'll make something because I just want to play. It's just a different mindset. I don't know if it changed. I don't know if it just, the internet skews the things you read because it's only certain folk are posting on the internet anyway. But my 2 bits on that. Yes, so I'm going to just say ES. I'm going to shorten your name to ES. I'm going to say, yes, you probably should change the auto-generated username because that's a bit of a mouthful to say. And the ES also says, agree that sometimes longtime players bring the worldview that they're hammers and every problem is a nail. Just hit it, move on. Yeah, I mean, and that and whatever that means can be different. But yes, you're coming in, you're like, oh, this is how I've been doing it, and and I think sometimes that's what people really do appreciate. I think and I know I've gone through this where I felt like if I had to pick, if I had to pick, I'd probably pick new players. If you said, like, you can start up a game It's either all new players or all veteran players. Which one are you picking? I would probably pick new players, just because there's just less baggage, and I could be the one to teach them the game, which means that I mean, there's something that's probably a little bit selfish, maybe it's a little bit of a power hungry. I don't know, but it's like, okay, I'm going to teach you how to play my game my way. You're going to play a game that we enjoy because you don't know any better, and I can fully onboard you into my kind of game, which I guess is kind of selfish, but it is what it is. But of course, I'm a veteran player, and I just try to take games as they right. You just kind of take the game as it is. Don't try to take the game and turn it into some other game you played or some other game you want to play. Just embrace the game that is. Maybe you don't like it, and maybe you say, it's not for me, and you move on. That's fair. That's fine. But at least give it a chance, right? Give it something good. Wiki Snapper says the best way to learn the game is just to roll the dice and jump in. I agree. And they also want to run an all-orc barbarian game. Yeah, that was funny. That was something that came up in the con game where someone asked, like, do we need to pick all these party roles? Like, should we pick one of each party role? And I'm like, pick what you want. I never believe in that, like, you should pick the party role thing. I know it makes things more difficult. Okay, if you don't have this, you don't have that. And look, in my game, if you're going to be getting into combat, not that you have to, but if you do and you don't have a fighter, yeah, it's going to be difficult. You don't have a warrior, it's going to be tougher. But to me, that's part of the challenge of playing the game. It's like, we're going to play 4 sorcerers or wizards, and we're going to make it work. And that's the challenge. And when you do make it work, it's going to feel amazing. And probably when it fails, if you flame out, it's a disaster, it will probably also be amazing. So I just embrace those kind of challenges. I always think just play what you want to play and then figure out how to make it work. It's, by the same flipping the coin though, too, I'm not going to make it easier for you. I'm not going to say like, oh, you guys don't have any warriors in the game, so now people are going to hit half as hard, or no, like I always try to make things open-ended where I'm going to say like, you don't have to fight stuff. Your 4 wizards, yeah, running in there and hacking at things is not your best strategy. Don't do it. I'm not going to force you to, but I'm also not going to have everything be a different way. The world is the world, but treat it as a challenge. Treat it as like, hell yeah, we can make this work, and then make it work. Oh, ES says that they might have been the ones that asked. They ended up picking a bounder, and that was really helpful. You did. Yeah, look, I mean, I think, as ES says, it was helpful to have one of each. It totally is. No question. And that particular adventure I ran has kind of a little bit of everything. So there's a little bit of potential combat. There's a little bit of potential exploration. There's a little bit of potential dungeoneering. And then there's kind of the social stuff, which anybody can do. So it definitely has a little something for everyone. But my point is that I wouldn't say like you have to. And I think there could be a lot of fun through trying to. I think one of the things that's nice about having an imbalanced party is you really does kind of force you to take look for even more unconventional solutions than you might have to. You don't have a fighter and you got to face that giant. What do? You still got to save the kids, but now you have to. Can you bargain with the giant, which is nobody's really tried yet, to call out and say, hey, I got stuff to give you. Do you want to try to cast some kind of spell? Do you want to try to make some trap? Like, what do you want? Do you just want to try to bum rush and do something like, like, what do you do like that? And that to me is fun. And I've always found that fun as a player of, well, what's the challenge here? And, oh, you're telling me that it's almost impossible to do that. Well, I like, never tell me the odds. Let me give it a try. ES says an all mage group of different elements could do some creative stuff. Yes, absolutely. That is definitely, and that's why it's in my game, it's costly to perform spells, right? Because you take strain pretty much regardless. Though the way the game is I can do kind of mixed successes and things to make it so that something happens if you kind of miscast, so to speak. But yeah, you can do really powerful stuff. And in one of the games I ran with Keeb's group, Daniel's group, like I said, they combined air magic and I think it was earth magic to make this like tornado of like crud to kind of get through something like a whirlwind of crud, where they're able to sit in the center of it, put themselves in the eye and kind of move it across, which was awesome. And yeah, there's all kinds of neat things you can do. Okay, soldier, this is something. Money. Looking for systems, light, no levels, maybe classless. I don't know. The Crimson Knight Kickstarter. All right, swashbuckler, great. 5 times AAR fighting. I don't know what that means. Fight AAR after action report. This might be cool actually to see let's see if they do some comparison. I'll put a link to this. Sean F. Smith's medium. Early November convolutions. 5 after action reports. I like after action reports. I'll put this in the chat. Let me just get the title of it there too for posterity. But yeah, in my game, I did try to give kind of there's a little bit of niche protection. Everybody has something that they do kind of well, better than everybody else. Okay. Early November convolutions. Meaning, again, I'm reading from the blog poster. 37-year-old male, not sure why that's important, but okay, have finished moving furniture in our bedroom to apologize to my partner, 33-year-old non-binary, for having played constantly for four evenings in a row. I don't know why they're putting all these numbers in brackets, but okay. All right, so Saturday was grog meat-ish. All right, I guess so. I'm gonna skip to the reports. All right, so the first game was Sentinels. Okay, thanks, medium. Sentinels of Silor Cha with Fighting Fantasy. GM was that they were the GM. Let's see the bullet points here. The Grand Wizard Gareth Yazstromo has learned by way of scrying of an assault on the Lizardman city of Silor Cha by the Serpentine Karth. ES says it's a common way for people to do Reddit relationship posts. Yeah, that part I get, but this is a blog post about role-playing game after action reports. I mean, I don't have an issue. It's just an interesting. The one that I don't even know if that's a joke is they put the 4 because it's like 4 in brackets 4. I get the age and gender, or yeah, I get that part. But the 4 part, I'm guessing that was a joke, which I guess I caught. All right. So the Grand Wizard Gareth Yazstromo is learned by way of scribing and is called on the city of Silor Cha by the Serpentine Karth. Now, while it is not unusual for the monstrous races of Titan to war upon themselves, Yazstromo foresaw a threat to all Alancia in this case. All right, I think I don't really care about the fictional part. I really just want to know how it went and if there's any system stuff. Hey, ES, thanks for hanging out. Okay, so this scenario, which is Sentinels of Silor Cha, is a jungle trek reminiscent of FF31 Fighting Fantasy Battle Blade Warrior and Act 3 of The Riddling Reaver, where the available paths, quote unquote, were largely signposted through observation tactics of the players. For example, I knew that one way was a grove of triffids, and one of the players was an alchemist, so I mentioned how he saw plants whose sap and pollen are used in the treatment of visual difficulties, using the same Gygaxian ecology that plants dock leaves near stinging nettles. Okay. Hold on a second. The most dangerous of the sentinels is a pit fiend that has been parasitized by a gonchong. I don't know what that is. Giving it a nigh impenetrable skill score and invulnerability to all but fire. One of the players managed to exploit the environment in a way I had not even anticipated, taking advantage of the methane given off by a pool of quote-unquote quicksand grubs, luring the pit fiend into a chase and pairing off at the last minute, I guess turning, kind of ducking out at the last minute, then igniting the very air. The pit fiend died of a death much like the climax of T2 Judgment Day. The Gonchong leapt to find a new host, but was lacerated by a burning whip from the elvish beast wrangler. That's a cool kind of scene, a nice tactic. I played with some variations to the standard game rules, swapping roll under checks for 2d6 plus stat versus 15 plus, which is almost mathematically identical to roll under anyway, and something they've stolen from Robertson Sando Jr.'s work. His is the most exciting edge in Fighting Fantasy lineage games these days. I'm not really familiar. I need to get more familiar with Fighting Fantasy, but I'm not. Let's see. This allowed me to bolt on the DAR Darrow. I don't know if they mean Dar Zero or Darrow. I guess it's Darrow of TNT and Tunnels and Trolls, and speed up damage by having stamina loss be equal to the difference between rolls. As it stood, we had a single round of combat in the entire session. I love running things in Titan. The fighting fantasy books have been my entry into the wider world of tabletop role-playing games. It's really is a geography I feel an intense nostalgia for. In fact, once I've workshopped this module a little further, I intend to pitch it to Arian Games. It would be excellent to get something released under the official Fighting Fantasy banner before Steve Jackson UK's stamina runs out. Okay, cool. All right, so then next up was a Shadow Dark, the Gravewater Horror. This time a different GM. In the excellent words of Old Scow's role player, a Shadow Dark classic dungeon crawl. From the tavern to the cavern, we stomped ghouls, set right the white, and smashed the horror of Gravewater. Oh, that's cute. The game was beset by tech awkwardness. Roll20 decided to throw most of its bugs at us, and I was entirely inaudible on Discord. Nevertheless, we rummaged through and had a good balance of exploration, exploitation, and evocative heroism. I was hoping for a little more details, but all right. And then a Vaesen game. Vaesen's another game that I have no experience with, but I'm curious about. Another different GM. We were sent to feudal Kansas, having received a letter that cows had been drowning under strange conditions. Upon arrival, even more cows had to be pulled from the lake by just one girl, and while our doctor's serving boy sweet talked the proprietor who'd brought us down, the doctor himself took a look at the scene of the cow tragedy. Further investigation revealed shenanigans with the keys, oddly recurring A chords, and emotions seeping under the surface amongst the workers. Some good deductive leaps led to clarifying some interesting evidence. Feels like we've got some good leads to go on next time. After the session, the GM apologized for it having been quite a slow pace, an apology which all of us players shot down. The slowness did not feel detrimental, but rather a strong and steady build, like the oddness of a David Lynch. In fact, at the break, I even remarked to my partner that as someone who tends to run more brisk encounters, this was an enjoyable change of pace. And it's to be continued. And I think sometimes that pacing stuff, I think it gets overblown. I really do. I think it's in a con game and a one shot, there might be a little bit more of that. But really, I just feel like just move at the pace of I think the thing is you just want to do is if you could see that the party is kind of dead ended, not necessarily physically or even in the fiction, but just in terms of like not sure what to do or kind of stuck, then you want to kind of help things along. If it feels hopeless or they don't know what to do or they don't think there's any options, whatever. But other than that, I just feel like let folks play at their pace. Sometimes a slow, deliberate session is just what everybody wants. And then, let's see, this one was Stonehell. Old School Essentials, I think with the advanced fantasy. Is that what that is? Different GM again. We're exploring level 1 of the dungeon proper, though through some religiously themed rooms suffused with undead. A lucky break on the way in let us take down $3. $3? For a good 24 rations worth of meat. Okay. Oh, $3, like literally 3. Okay, I got you. Male deer, bucks. Even feeding ourselves and our retainers, we still had a good amount saved in case we need to gift the black bear who's been known to wander about these parts. Between our last delve in this, we'd got the town carpenter to put together stilts that might protect us from intermittent blazing balefire. Stilts that protect from balefire? That's an interesting trick. Maybe I'm misthinking what they mean by one of those two words. And our thief Zephyrine used these to walk out of the fire's lick, okay, to a dais with a heavy chest. We dragged the chest out, looked over for traps, and confidently let the dwarf open the thing, failing to have spotted the poison gas vial that shattered. Oh no, Comrade Kurtz died instantly. He had been our longest running PC and the only one to have survived from the first session. Every other player is on at least their second PC. Man, RIP Kurtz. We have now gotten enough cash to upgrade the town's facilities. Luckily, the gas had largely dissipated by the time we got back a week later to recover the corpse. Womp womp. And that's what happens, man. You take it easy one time and blam. That's when it gets you. I'll say this. This is a lot of gaming that they're able to do, which is hats off to them. I think I'd have one of these, and just because of the con, I'd have 2 games, but usually it'd be one or, unfortunately, fairly often recently, none. Okay, so let's see. The D-Sanction adventure called Buried Dreams. Different GM again. Elizabethan espionage with 4 petty wizards saved from the Newgate drop by dint of being 200 years too early by agreeing to do magic on behalf of the crown. Sent into the London ward of S. Pulcher to investigate the exhumation of a plague pit where rumors abounded of very cunning rats. A child had been bitten, and so too had a worker. 3 of us louts and 1 fine gentleman. We asked after the wounded child, getting a gobbet of black bile to the bonds for our sins, and poked our noses at the smarmy bureaucrats doing the dig. Our gentleman managed to exploit the hospitality of a retired priest and shortcut us to a lot of understanding, but even knowing the problem didn't make for easy management. Our efforts and energies prevailed, solving the case, if letting a good hefty number of ensorcelled workers die in the interim. Excellent module scope and one they're going to steal for swavers. Interesting. All right, so I wish they told me a little bit more about what the problem was and how they solved it, but I guess glad that they had a good time. I was look, no shame on the blog post, but I was hoping for a little bit of a different thing. But still, cool. And congrats to them for getting so many games in. Okay, what is going on? I don't know if I'm not on this Discord, I don't think. OSR Social reformed, initially created the OSR Social server on Discord with lofty ideas about bridging disparate groups under the umbrella of OSR. It received a lot of criticism for inviting and allowing controversial figures into the community. I need to admit that this was incredibly naive of me. Over the last year, my views have changed, and so have server policies. Today, I've clean house, and will continue as time goes on. So, with that said, they'd like to invite people again. Okay. And then someone named Thror says, "Oh no, people who think different than the approved group join my server. Don't worry, I censored them." And also, social says, "Actually, that pretty much sums it up." I mean, look, it's I get it's one of I don't know, it's a sticky wicket. Okay, I get that idea that like, can you not have people disagree with you? But unfortunately, some of those folks, some of those disagreements are just they're very personal to people, and I think that they don't handle them particularly well. I find that oftentimes the people, some of the controversial figures, are not exactly like they do a lot of, I think they do a lot of underhanded tactics just in the way they communicate stuff. They don't act particularly thoughtful. I don't find them personalities. I'm like, boy, this person seems really great to talk to. It's just that they have different things from me. I kind of end up feeling when I read this stuff like, man, that guy or that person, not necessarily guy, the person, guy, lady, whomever, they're a jerk. Even if we're on the same page, they're a jerk. And then it's like, well, why do I want jerks running around on the server driving people away with their jerkishness? But look, I get it. It's sticky, but look, Discord, it's not a public space. You're inviting someone onto your instance. You can kind of do it the way you want. It's like you're inviting people into your home, essentially, into your place. You have no obligation to them. Ian says there's a good Dead Kennedy song about those people. I'm not sure which one you're thinking of, but I bet you whichever one it is, you're probably right. Okay, here's probably the last one. This one seems good. Okay, new DM here. How can a low-level party cleverly hunt a wyvern they can't beat in a straight fight? It's obvious they can't win ahead on combat. It would be a TPK. All right, and then says second edit, so I guess there was another edit that's no longer here, but they edited it saying, I know this is something my players should figure out, not me. I'm just brainstorming ideas for my own inspiration, trying to think about what I would do in their shoes. I won't be feeding them the answers, of course, but there is an experienced hunter NPC, the adventurer, who might be hired to offer them some advice. Okay, so yes, I mean, I get it, right? I'm usually on the side of, yeah, man, that's a player problem. That's not a you problem. Okay, assuming that your adventure doesn't hinge on them taking out the wyvern and there's no other solution, nothing else, right? Then I think if you make it like you have to do this, then you should probably think about, well, how could they do this? Other than that, if it's like, yeah, there's a wyvern nest there, if you want to go take it on, great. If not, great, kind of thing. But I can also see that, yeah, then maybe they go to someone with advice, and it would be good if their NPC could give them advice that's actually useful, as opposed to I don't know either. But that, not that would be invalid, because sometimes like the hunter might be like, yeah, you know what I do when I find a wyvern nest? I go the other way, and that's a little bit where the value in that is you are signposting the danger. If they go to the experienced adventurer and the experienced hunter, and you're like, hey man, how do we take down this wyvern nest? The hunter looks you up and down and goes, you don't. You leave that boy alone, and you come back when you're older and you've grown some beard. That stubble's turned into beard. Then you come back and then you deal with the wyvern, right? Or does a quint like, okay, you can pay me to do it myself, but I'm not taking you with me, kind of thing. So that's not even necessarily a terrible thing. It's just like, yeah, they don't know either. But yeah, I mean, as someone first combat, you could try to bait it with some poison or there's some kind of ambush. Lure it to a more dangerous knot. These are all good. Lure into a more dangerous knot. The monster, get it while it's sleeping. If you can get it in a cave or something. If you can get it with an avalanche. Combats are kind of, the D20 and a lot of stuff, they're pretty swingy. And even a low-level party, they got enough cracks at it and a little bit of luck, and maybe they're able to get that first shot in there. And if they can get a surprise round where they can catch it flat-footed, so to speak, It's not impossible for them to just get a really good round. Maybe they bring some archers with them. They hire some archers from the town and set them up somewhere and do something. Or yeah, they're able to get the jump on it. They're able to poison. Like you can try to figure it out. Or hide it, get in the nest, hide there, and then do something in the nest. Could be another option. All kinds of things you can do. Got to open their mind, right? It's not just the combat part. And I think that's something that often I find folks who have been weaned on kind of the 5e, it's like, well, if I can't beat it in combat with my character class abilities, then like this is a horrible thing. Or it's like, no, think about how you can kill things in real life. Very often you don't go one-on-one with something can kill you, is you do other things. So what are those other things you might do? Think about it. Like what do you do if you had to hunt a tiger? You probably don't just run at the tiger head on. Either you invent firearms and you get into a blind or something like that, or whatever. But but you have to do it, so you figure it out, and that's a good skill to imbue your players with. But I get what they're saying, but even just this first post has good options. Nets, poison arrows, harpoons potentially. I'm not sure what the harpoons are for. Any kind of distance weapon. Try to get as many distance attacks on it as you can. I'm not sure exactly what the harpoon itself is going to do, because it's just basically a spear. Unless they mean like literally have like a 19th century, like black powder powered harpoon gun like you might on a whaling ship. But in olden days, or back before they had that stuff, they were literally just throwing spears with ropes attached to it into it. Ian says harpoon with rope. Yeah, I guess it must be. And I guess you hope you get it, and so you can kind of. That one's a good one, though. It's kind of interesting. That one is like, if they're not an experienced GM, this one could be kind of tough. You just got to play it out. Just don't make it too awkward, because then you have to figure out. Okay, you got the harpoon in him. You're holding the rope. How much does that affect its armor class? And whatever. Just add some things. But that one might be a confusing option potentially. But sure. Create a bunker and shoot it from within the bunker. That might be a way to do it. Everyone's got good stuff. Think outside the box. Oh yeah, Ian says avoid it, keep it from flying away. Yeah, that's a good point. So I think wyverns. I don't know how many hit dice a wyvern has. They're not too. It's not like a full dragon, but yeah. I guess it's two things. It does keep it from escaping. It also means that instead of escaping, it attacks. So might have a double edge there. All right, I guess I'll end it here. It's been an hour. I'm not necessarily seeing anything else going on. Well, thanks everybody for hanging out. Have a great Friday. Next week, I'm going to try to post. I need to get my schedule set up. So I'm going to be at PAX Unplugged next week, starting on Friday up until Sunday. I will be at the Independent Game Developer Network's booth, helping out. I think part on Friday and part of Saturday. I'll also be kind of running some sort of, I don't know. I don't know if it's technically a demo or like a sample play, whatever. So I'll be kind of there with my game also over at that booth, and then I'll be wandering around. So anybody who's in the area, hit me up. You know where you can reach me. You know how I make a living. And yeah, that's about right. But I'll talk more about it next week when it gets closer. All right, folks. Have a great rest of your day, night, whenever you end up watching or listening to this. Game on, everybody. And I'll talk to you later. Bye now.